So now to begin with the annual update. As I mentioned earlier, I'm Erin Pollard, and I'm the Project Officer for ERIC in the U.S. Department of Education. I'd like to welcome you to our semi-annual ERIC Update webinar. This is going to be a longer version of the presentation that I gave at the American Library Association and Special Library Association conferences earlier this month. Today I'm going to begin with an overview of who ERIC serves, the size of our collection, and give some general facts and figures. Then I'm going to talk about the accomplishments that we have made in the past year and some planned enhancements for the future. At the end, I will take questions. If you have a question, as I mentioned before, please use the chat box on the side. I will either work the answer into the presentation or address it at the end. ERIC is a collection of over 1.6 million education resources that have been building since 1966. We have journal articles, research reports, fact sheets, conference papers, and books in our collection. In the past year, we have had over 12 million people from 242 countries use ERIC. Although we are a U.S.-based resource, over half of our users are international. We have 5 main audiences. The first are academics. These are academic librarians, professors, and students. I'm going to be overgeneralizing for all these groups, but academics tend to have access to subscription databases and are looking for peer-reviewed journal articles. Full text isn't as important because generally these users can get the full text through their library subscription. The next group are researchers. They are looking for the latest information, preferably peer-reviewed, but it is generally less important if the document is a journal article, conference paper, or report. Like academics, these users typically have access to subscription databases. When we think of educators, we think of K-12 teachers, principals, and curriculum specialists. They often have little to no access to full text, so they're relying on ERIC to provide it. They are also less interested in journal articles with technical language and long econometric equations, and more interested in user-friendly, high-quality materials. Policymakers, such as those in state or federal departments of education or legislatures, are also looking for high-quality, user-friendly materials. They need to make decisions quickly and rely on ERIC for current information from grantees and researchers across the country. Lastly are the general public. These are generally parents looking for information. They want full text and generally aren't looking for complicated journal articles. So when we work on any new project or initiative for ERIC, we keep these audiences in mind to try to balance the needs of everyone. ERIC gets its content from over 1,800 different publishers. Our providers range from big journal publishers like Taylor & Francis and Wiley to smaller publishers that may produce a single journal article as a part-time function. We also have a ton of non-journal publishers, such as education associations, universities, research centers, and federal and state government agencies. We added 87 new sources in 2015. These sources include 59 new journals and 28 new publishers of reports, conference papers, and other documents. In addition, last year, IES grantees contributed 80 peer-reviewed full-text reports as a result of the IES public access policy. These are what you commonly would call pre-pub or pre-published versions, like what users would submit in their institutional repository. Now I'll describe ERIC's accomplishments over the past year. So far this year, we have processed 23,324 new records. 83% of these records are for peer-reviewed content, and about 32% have full text available for download. So of these, 26% are peer-reviewed full text documents. We've been working to increase the blue section of PI, the work that is peer-reviewed and full text, through our selection policy. The way that we authorize this new content is through our selection policy. In January, we released a new version of the selection policy that had one major change. When ERIC first introduced the peer review flag, the only documents that were eligible for inclusion were journal articles and work published by the Institute of Education Sciences, the parent organization of ERIC. However, this was causing confusion because some documents that were clearly peer-reviewed did not have the peer review flag. What we did was completely rewrite this section of policy to clarify how we define peer review and extend the option for all work to get this designation, as long as it was peer-reviewed. So now, when you select the peer-reviewed only checkbox, both journal articles and non-journal entries will pop up. This leads to a frequently asked question. Why don't we have a checkbox for just peer-reviewed journal articles? Right now, users can find peer-reviewed journal articles through 2 clicks, the checkmark at the top and then filtering by document type. We feel like this best meets the needs of multiple user groups. Students can filter their results if they have specific requirements for their assignments, but researchers and policymakers can easily see the results from all of our peer-reviewed literature. Further, there's complications with this based off of the IES public access policy that you have many of our documents are final peer-reviewed manuscripts. So they are not journals yet, but they're the pre-published version. And we know that there's debate over whether this count as journals or do not count as journals. And that is up to individual professors and their assignments. So because this is murky, we feel like 2 clicks is the best option. And I'd be happy to talk about that more in our Q&A. So in addition to the major selection policy update, we also made a major thesaurus update. The thesaurus is the backbone of ERIC. It is our control of vocabulary and how we index our content. We updated it this past October to capture changes in the terminology, outdated words, and new concepts. When we update the thesaurus, we work from a pool of candidate terms that have been suggested by ERIC users and indexers. As we review these terms, we ask, is there literary warrant? Literary warrant means that the term appears in ERIC content. Terms with a high level of literary warrant, 1,000 hits or more, are considered to be priority. Is there a need? If we've received multiple requests for the same addition or change, we consider those requests to be a priority. We also take into account if the change promotes indexing consistency, reflects the language of our users, and brings our thesaurus in compliance with NISO standards. This process took almost a year, and in the end, we made a handful of updates. We added 19 new descriptors like Common Core State Standards and low-income students. We also added 28 new synonyms and made 17 changes to existing terms, including the descriptor change from mental retardation to intellectual disability. These changes are done to help users find what they're looking for by matching the language that our users are currently using. Another project that we are working on involves improvements to the ERIC identifiers field. The identifiers field is a historic field that contains information about a wide variety of topics. Currently, all identifier information is in one field that we made searchable in 2015. The problem with this field is that it's a hodgepodge of information that makes it very challenging for users to find what they're looking for. Our solution is to break this one field into separate fields. It will allow for more precise filtering and make it possible to filter these fields instead of just search. It will also add consistency to the identifiers by making them a controlled vocabulary. We think these searchable fields will be a huge benefit for researchers. So the first change we are making is the geographic location. This field will contain the country name for non-US countries, cities for the top 100 most populous cities, and a state for smaller cities. For example, we previously had Alabama, parentheses, Southwest as an identifier. This will now be mapped to Alabama and will show up with all the other Alabama fields. The problem with Alabama, parentheses, Southwest is that this level of specification was not consistently applied across all records, and Southwest Alabama is fairly subjective. Plus, we don't think researchers think of using this term when they're searching our database. Similarly, we had Virginia, parentheses, Fairfax County. Now, this will be mapped to Virginia because we do not consistently fill in the county for all of our records. This way, if you're looking for work done in Fairfax County, you can still use the Virginia location code. Next, we created the test and measures field. In the legacy field, there was a character limit that caused some creative truncation. This is problematic because it is very hard to search for something when it has been truncated in several different ways. We also removed the author's name from each test because this was not done consistently. We wanted to make the information in each field as useful as possible to our end users. So historically, we had abbreviated the National Longitudinal Transition Study of Special Education Students using the truncation highlighted. This is a truncation I had never seen before, and I don't think researchers would think to use. By spelling out the whole name, it will be much more useful to users. We also removed parenthetical author names to increase accuracy and consistency of our records. Lastly, we consolidated test names. This is just one example on a single test with 15 different variations. Users would enter one variation of the name and find results, so they wouldn't think that they would need to search the other 14 different ways. Now we will have one single term. So next is laws and legislation. Like for the other fields, we updated truncations and standardized names. For example, there's some unique truncating going on for the Perkins Act. We've standardized the name to the full official name of the Act. That way search terms like applied technology and vocational will return results. Okay, so the next big thing we've worked on is to fully integrate ERIC with the newly redesigned IES website by adding hyperlinks to useful resources. First, we are adding a link to the IES website for all IES products. For example, this is a guide from the What Works Clearinghouse, and if you click the link to the guide, you will find an e-reader version, a study summary, and videos from the authors. Many IES products have companion pieces, so adding these links will help connect users to them. Second, we're going to add links to funding information for work funded by IES grants. This will enable users to see what their taxpayer dollars are being spent to fund and how a particular article feeds into a larger body of work. Third, for studies that meet the What Works Clearinghouse standards, we will be linking to that studies page on the new What Works Clearinghouse website that will be launched this fall. The Clearinghouse reviews studies that examine causal impacts to determine if the methods the study used are rigorous enough to support their claim. So if a study said a certain curriculum causes students to learn 10% more than what they were doing before, the Clearinghouse would look at the methods behind that study to see if they were sound enough to support that claim. The problem is, a lot of these studies have pages of econometric equations, literally Greek, that is not user-friendly to users who have not taken graduate-level statistics classes. The Clearinghouse breaks down all that information in the study, such as the setting, who it was studied, how that study was conducted, and the findings, and puts it into a nice user-friendly website. This will be tremendously helpful to students, and I cannot wait until it's live. We think this will be incredibly, incredibly useful. The last link we are adding is related to the author identification, specifically ORCID, Science CV, ERA Commons, and NSF Fastlane. These author IDs take users to third-party websites to find additional information about the author, such as background and other publications they've written. This solves what I call the John Young problem. There are thousands of John Youngs, so if you're looking for work by a particular John Young, having a specific author code really helps, and it really helps you figure out what other pieces the author has written if you're trying to figure out their body of work. So in addition to the new hyperlinks, we are also continuing our work to restore the PDFs that were taken offline because they were not readable. These are documents marked as PDF pending restoration in the collection. We are converting these documents to make them searchable PDFs. However, this is not a quick or straightforward activity, and given the quality of some of these documents, we are trying to restore. To understand some of the challenges, it's helpful to remember that when ERIC was created 50 years ago, it was primarily a microfiche-based system. When ERIC went online, the microfiche was converted to PDFs to make it easy for users to access documents. However, the technology for PDFs 10-plus years ago was different than it is today, and the PDFs were made as images. This meant that they were not machine readable, which enables searching and is necessary for individuals with disabilities. To make the document searchable, ERIC used optical character recognition, called OCR, software to scan the PDFs. This process takes the existing image and assigns letters, numbers, or punctuation to create a readable text layer that an author can search, copy, and paste. The text created by the OCR process is known as alternate text. A large number of ERIC's historic documents were typed by a typewriter, converted to microfiche, and then converted to PDF. As longtime ERIC users may have seen, these documents were pretty hard to read with the human eye. Machines, via the OCR process, cannot do much better. Some of our documents are so faint that they are not readable to the human eye, nor via the OCR process, and therefore are not a focus of the current effort to restore unreadable PDFs. Other documents are in better shape, but still may have words misspelled, truncated, or missing letters. These require manual editing to correct the text and punctuation to match the image. Making these manual edits can be challenging. We don't want to infer what the author is saying or inadvertently change the alternate text associated with the document. Given the challenges that exist in these records, restoring the PDF to be readable is a time-consuming process. We're combining the use of automated tools and manual edits to make a restoration of these previously unreadable documents as efficient and timely as possible. These efforts are part of an effort performed over a number of years to restore as many of these unreadable documents as possible. We've made a huge push to increase our communication activities to a wide variety of users and over the past year. And you can find all this work in a multimedia link on the ERIC website. So this is changing gears a little bit, talking about some of our new outreach activities. So ERIC has just released 3 videos this spring, including one that describes how ERIC selects new sources for the collection. We've received lots of questions about how this process is done. And while all of the information is in our selection policy, this is a 3-minute summary of our process. We use videos like these because we find that many of our publishers and our users are not reading the selection policy. So to be transparent, we put it out here in a video format. The second video is one I'm incredibly excited about. It is a step-by-step guide of how to use ERIC to write a research paper. This is a video that you absolutely want to watch, put in your LibGuide, and share with your students. In fact, several professors who we showed this video to have put it in their syllabi for freshman students. We developed this video with the help of professors that regularly teach undergraduates and see where they struggle in writing papers. I highly recommend you checking this video out and telling your students to watch it. The last video we released is called About ERIC. It is essentially a beginner's guide to ERIC. It provides information on ERIC's mission and sponsorship, what's in the collection, who uses ERIC, and provides links to other resources for more information. We will be continuing to build our video library by adding a number of new videos throughout the coming year. These videos are intended to address the varying needs of our audiences, but especially the needs of ERIC's novice users. Several of the videos will explain how to perform a specific task. We are also considering 3 other short FAQ videos to respond to frequently asked questions to the ERIC Help Desk. If you have ideas for videos, please either put it in the comment box of the chat or send it to ericrequest@ed.gov. We would love to know what you think would be helpful. We'll also be creating more infographics that explain concepts or convey metrics using creative designs. ERIC has released 2 infographics so far. Our year in review for 2015, which depicted the size of the ERIC user base, content statistics, and new products that were developed during the year, and how a record is added to ERIC, which shows the flow of new content into the database. You can see both in the FAQ area of the ERIC website. We plan to provide many more of these infographics throughout the year. And again, if you have suggestions or ideas, please send us a note. We also plan to host more webinars like these to keep you up to date with ERIC. At least one of these webinars will describe and clarify a key area of confusion for ERIC novice users, but we are still working on topics. If you have suggestions of ways that you think we could provide a helpful webinar, please let us know. And we plan to host these in the fall, winter, and next spring. Additionally, if you think that this is useful, we will do ERIC semi-annual updates in January timeframe and June timeframe. So now we want to open up to any questions that you have on ERIC. Please use the chat box to ask all panelists any questions. And while you're waiting for us to answer, please follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook. Additionally, if you think of a question after this presentation, or you think your question would best be answered offline, please email us at ericrequests@ed.gov. We can answer your question that way as well. So, thanks. We have a question, and it says, thanks for your video. I know that they're over 40 minutes long, and I think our students would appreciate being able to access specific information needed. Would it be possible for you to release timestamps for the different sections of the video? So I was hoping you did not see that. What was happening is we made these slides before the video was live. These videos are not 40 minutes long. No one will watch them. They are how to, the About ERIC is, I think, 3 minutes and 33 seconds. The How to Write a Research Paper is 8 minutes and 37 seconds or 40 seconds, which is long and longer than what most students watch, but it was as short as we could get with all the steps necessary. And we thought about ways to break it up shorter, but we could not find a good way to do it. But if you have suggestions, we would be happy to provide timestamps. And the How ERIC Selects New Sources is also in the 3 to 4 minute range. We do have longer videos, such as the recording of our webinars. And what we did for the thesaurus webinar was we broke it into 10-minute segments. And they weren't 10 minutes on the dot. It was based off of sections. But if you have ideas of videos that you think are too long, please let us know. We'd be happy to shorten them. Other questions? Okay. We're going to give it another minute for other questions. Can you demonstrate an ERIC search term with the new descriptors, such as test, scales, or geography? No, I can't, because the new descriptors are only available on the development server, and I'm not logged in right now, and we only have like 90 test records populated. But what will happen is the new identifiers fields will be filtered on the side, just like how it currently is on the ERIC search engine. I'm seeing what screenshots I have, and I don't have anything that would be helpful. So on the side, on the left-hand column in ERIC, you will be able to filter using these search terms. You'll also be able to do a search. We got the development prototype of this yesterday. So we're still refining on how it will look, but we will do either a video or some kind of outreach to make sure that you can understand how these will use. But let me just, I believe I have a screenshot here of, okay, so how this page right here, the identifiers, that will be location Australia. That will be the search term that we will use, and Australia will appear on the in the location description, and along with any other state that is relevant. So we're talking, the next question is about APIs, whether or not an API is available. And the answer is no, not yet, but it's something that we are really working to have. We want to do this in the most useful way as possible. And what our plan A is to make our version of the API in the same way that other products in the Institute of Education Sciences, such as the National Center for Education Statistics products, have it in the same format. So it's taking some time to coordinate, but we are working on it, and it's something that we know we need and we want, but it's just taking some time. when will the new updates go live? So this is an important question that I realized I never stated in the presentation. We have 1.6 million records in ERIC. So it's a huge database. We expect to finalize the field structure the next week or two and start sending over batches of these new records to build up. And we're hoping that by sometime in the next month or two, we will be able to launch this in ERIC, live on ERIC. This is on the eric.ed.gov site. Then if you use ERIC through a vendor such as EBSCO, ProQuest, we will put a new downloads file up. So what those individuals will have to download the new file structure and build a new system. So there's going to be some delay. You will see it live on ERIC first, and then we're going to work with partners that we know use ERIC to help them get all these updates ready in their system. But I'm hoping that this will be live by September, hopefully sooner. Given the size and scale of our collection, we don't want to take, we want this up as soon as possible, but we want to make sure it's done right. So we're trying to balance both of these. I was asked if I had any estimate on the API application. There are just too many balls in the air for me to give you that. I don't know. I would say probably at least minimum a year. Is there any plans to enable the export feature into Excel files in addition to the current version that we have, which is what PubMed uses? That is the first time I am seeing this request. And so the answer is no. We don't have any plans now, but I don't see any reason why we couldn't do this and why we probably couldn't do this very easily. So we will put that on our consideration list, and if you have more details or more thoughts about this, please send us an email at ericrequest@ed.gov, and we will put that on our wish list of something for the developers to think about how to do. Something else that is on our wish list that we are working on, but we aren't going to promise that we're going to have, is trying to find a way to do links to holdings, seeing as that is a common request from users, that where they want to know, does their library have access to a PDF if ERIC can't give it? And we're working on that, and we're just trying to find a way to do it. Other questions? Okay, so I see a question here asking me about the difference between EDs and EJs, and just asking for some more clarification about why we can't have a peer-reviewed journals only button. And so the reason for this is that ERIC, under the IES Public Access Policy, which is going to be expanded both ed-wide and government-wide, it requires our grantees to submit their final peer-reviewed manuscripts to IES through ERIC and to make those available to the public. When we make them public, we make them public as ED documents. So these are not journal articles yet, but often the exact same text. And we have found is that sometimes some people consider these journals, some people consider these not to be journals. And to create a button to say this is a journal or this is not a journal, you need a clear answer. There's a lot of gray muck there. You also run into the same issue with IES-funded reports, where they're not journals, but they're peer-reviewed documents and are something that could be okay, and so you don't want to filter them out. So because there is so much area of interpretation that we are thinking that it's better for people, for users to use a two-filter approach until the field comes to consensus over what a journal, what is and is not a journal article. Okay, any other questions? All right, I don't see any. So if questions come up, please feel free to email us at ericrequests@ed.gov. And in the meantime, please go to eric.ed.gov/multimedia and check out our videos. We really think that they'll be helpful. All right, thank you, everybody.